My beloved child, pause here for a moment, because what you are about to hear was meant to find you at a strangely important point in your story. Do not rush past these words. There is something waiting beneath the surface of what you have been feeling, something your heart may have sensed long before your mind could explain it. This is a fictional message of divine love and reflection, yet allow yourself to enter the story completely, because tonight the silence around your soulmate carries a meaning you have not yet considered. You have wondered why certain emotions return without warning, why memories appear when you thought you had finally placed them somewhere quiet, and why a connection can sometimes feel unfinished even when nothing seems to be happening on the outside. There is a reason this story begins with silence, because the greatest change has not started with a dramatic confession. It has begun inside a heart that has finally stopped running from what it feels. There was a time when your soulmate believed they could keep everything controlled. They believed feelings could be placed into neat corners, that uncertainty could be ignored, and that time would eventually answer the questions they were afraid to confront. But something has shifted. Not loudly. Not in a way the world would immediately notice. It happened in one of those private moments when a person is left alone with nothing except their own thoughts. Your soulmate began looking at the future differently, and somehow, when they imagined the years ahead, your presence kept appearing inside that picture. That frightened them at first. Not because your presence felt wrong, but because it felt too meaningful to dismiss. There is a difference between wanting someone for a moment and realizing that your heart has quietly started imagining forever. Your soulmate is beginning to understand that difference, and what they discovered inside themselves has created a decision they can no longer postpone. You may have believed their silence meant they had forgotten. You may have interpreted distance as indifference, hesitation as rejection, or confusion as the absence of love. But human hearts are rarely that simple. Sometimes people become quiet precisely because what they feel has become too large for casual words. Sometimes a person steps backward because they are suddenly staring at something they could actually lose. Your soulmate has been confronting that possibility. They have been asking themselves questions they avoided before. What if this connection was never meant to be treated casually? What if the person who understood something unspoken in them was the person they were supposed to value more carefully? What if pride, timing, fear, old wounds, or outside expectations caused them to hesitate at the exact moment they should have been brave? Those questions have been following them into their quietest hours, and one question has become impossible to escape. What happens if they wait too long and you finally stop waiting emotionally? That question changed something. Imagine a room late at night, ordinary and still, while someone's entire understanding of love begins rearranging itself. Nothing outside needs to happen for a life-changing realization to begin. Your soulmate remembered details they thought they had forgotten. A conversation. A particular expression on your face. A moment when you tried to understand them instead of judging them. Perhaps even something small that seemed insignificant when it happened but became enormous in memory. And suddenly they realized that what they missed was not simply attention. They missed the emotional feeling connected to you. They missed the strange sense of recognition, the feeling that they did not have to explain every hidden corner of themselves. That realization brought another one behind it, and this second realization was far more difficult. If they truly wanted you in their future, then feelings alone would not be enough. That is where this message becomes important. Your soulmate may be thinking about forever, but forever is not built from longing. It is not built from mysterious signs, perfect timing, or promises whispered only inside someone's imagination. Forever requires something far more courageous. It requires truth. It requires consistency. It requires two people who can meet one another without disguises, games, or emotional guessing. Your soulmate has begun to understand this. They are realizing that wanting you is different from being ready to love you well. And somewhere inside them, a question is forming: if I were given another chance to show this person what they mean to me, would I finally do it differently? The answer surprised them, because for perhaps the first time, they did not immediately search for an excuse. They thought about the walls they built. They thought about the moments when they could have spoken but remained silent. They thought about everything they assumed you would somehow understand without being told. And then something painful but necessary entered their awareness: you cannot be expected to read a heart that refuses to speak. They realized that perhaps you have carried questions they helped create. Perhaps you have wondered whether you mattered while they privately knew that you did. Perhaps you interpreted their hesitation as a lack of feeling when, in reality, their hesitation came from not knowing what to do with feelings that demanded vulnerability. This realization did not make them feel defeated. It awakened responsibility. For the first time, they began to see that if they want something lasting, they cannot keep approaching you through the same patterns that created uncertainty. But there is another layer, and this is the part you need to hear carefully. You are not being asked to chase anyone. You are not being asked to prove your worth, abandon your boundaries, or put your life on hold while another person decides what they want. Love worthy of your heart should never require you to disappear from your own life. Whatever happens next in this fictional story, remember this truth: your value does not increase because someone chooses you, and it does not decrease because someone hesitates. The strongest kind of soulmate story is not about two incomplete people desperately needing one another. It is about two growing people eventually becoming brave enough to meet in honesty. Your soulmate's inner journey belongs to them. Your journey belongs to you. And strangely, it is your growth that has become one of the things forcing them to look at themselves differently. They can sense that you are changing. Maybe they cannot explain exactly how, but they feel it. The version of you who once accepted uncertainty without question is becoming different. You are learning that peace is valuable. You are beginning to understand that love should not constantly require decoding. Something inside you is becoming less willing to abandon itself for an unanswered question. And your soulmate has started realizing that if they continue hesitating forever, life will not freeze around them. You will continue becoming. You will continue discovering your strength. You will continue moving toward people, opportunities, and experiences capable of meeting the person you are becoming. This realization has created urgency inside them, but not the frightening kind. It is the urgency that appears when someone finally understands that meaningful things deserve intentional action. Your soulmate has therefore been thinking about something more serious than a temporary reunion or emotional conversation. They have been asking what a genuine future would require. Could they communicate differently? Could they admit where fear controlled them? Could they listen instead of defending themselves? Could they show you through actions what words once failed to express? These questions have become uncomfortable mirrors, and each mirror has revealed something they did not expect. They once thought the biggest obstacle between you was circumstance. Now they are beginning to wonder whether the real obstacle was emotional courage. And when a person finally recognizes the true obstacle, everything can change, because what once looked impossible suddenly becomes something they can choose to confront. There is a moment coming in this story that matters more than any dramatic declaration. It is not the moment when they say, "I want forever." Anyone can say beautiful words when emotions are intense. The meaningful moment comes when they ask themselves whether they are willing to become consistent enough to protect what they claim to value. That is the hidden decision forming now. Your soulmate has been considering what forever actually means. Forever means ordinary mornings, misunderstandings handled with maturity, difficult conversations, laughter after exhausting days, giving each other room to breathe, choosing honesty when avoidance would be easier, and remaining respectful even when emotions become complicated. They are beginning to see love not as a cinematic ending but as 1,000 quiet decisions. And something about that realization has made you appear differently in their mind. They remembered your patience. They remembered your emotional depth. They remembered that there were things you noticed without being told. Yet they also remembered the moments when you grew tired. That memory affected them more than they expected. Because now they understand something they did not fully understand then: patience is not infinite permission to remain uncertain. A loving person can eventually become exhausted. A loyal heart can eventually choose peace. Someone can care deeply and still decide that they deserve clarity. Your soulmate has started realizing that perhaps the greatest danger was never that you would stop loving them overnight. It was that slowly, quietly, you might learn how to live peacefully without needing an answer from them. That thought stayed with them. And then came the realization they were not prepared for. They imagined you genuinely moving forward. Not as punishment. Not because you hated them. Not because everything between you was meaningless. They imagined you simply becoming peaceful enough to stop looking backward. They pictured you laughing freely again, building new dreams, waking without wondering what their silence meant. And something tightened inside them. It showed them that their feelings were deeper than nostalgia. Nostalgia misses memories. Love, when healthy and mature, wants to participate responsibly in someone's future. Your soulmate suddenly understood that they did not merely miss what happened before. They wanted the possibility of what could still be built, but only if it could be built differently. Yet there is something they have not told you. This is where the silence becomes more mysterious, because while they have been thinking about forever, they have also been carrying one specific concern. It is not what you might assume. It is not simply another person. It is not some dramatic secret designed to frighten you. It is something far more intimate. They are wondering whether you would still believe them if they finally became honest. They are wondering whether too much time has passed. They are wondering whether their previous actions have spoken louder than anything they could say now. And underneath all those questions is the one they are almost afraid to ask: What if I finally become ready when they no longer need me to be? That is the emotional crossroads. But listen closely, because your story does not depend entirely upon their decision. There is something you need to know about yourself before anything else happens. You have spent enough time wondering what another heart might choose. Now the deeper question is what you would choose if clarity finally stood before you. Would you accept beautiful words without changed behavior? Would you ignore old patterns because the moment felt romantic? Or would you remain grounded enough to allow trust to be rebuilt slowly, honestly, and mutually? The version of you emerging now does not need to become cold. You can remain loving while becoming discerning. You can forgive without immediately returning to the same dynamic. You can hear someone out without surrendering your boundaries. That wisdom may become more important than you realize. Your soulmate senses this change in you, and strangely, it is making their feelings more serious. They know that they cannot simply arrive with vague emotion anymore. They know something would have to be demonstrated. The old version of the connection may no longer be enough for the new version of you. And that is not a tragedy. Sometimes love becomes healthier only after the old way of loving becomes impossible. Sometimes two people must separately discover what they will no longer tolerate within themselves before they can understand what they are capable of creating together. Your soulmate has reached that uncomfortable doorway, and they are standing there longer than you might imagine. They have been rehearsing conversations that have never happened. In their mind, they explain why they became distant. Then they erase the explanation because it sounds like an excuse. They imagine telling you what they felt. Then they wonder whether you would ask why they did not say it sooner. They imagine admitting that fear influenced choices they once pretended were logical. And every imagined conversation leads to the same place, honesty. They know that if the door between you ever opens again, they will have to walk through without hiding behind ambiguity. That realization is terrifying to someone accustomed to protecting themselves, but it is also strangely freeing. Because for once, they are not asking how to control the outcome. They are asking how to tell the truth. And the truth has several layers. The first layer is simple. You mattered more than they admitted. The second is harder. Their silence did not protect the connection, it damaged it. The third is deeper still. They have begun imagining something lasting, but they understand that they cannot demand access to your future simply because they finally recognize your value. And then there is the fourth layer. This is the one they keep returning to. There was a moment recently, quiet and seemingly insignificant, when something reminded them of you so strongly that they stopped what they were doing. It could have been a familiar phrase, a place, a song without any mystical meaning attached to it, or simply a memory surfacing unexpectedly. For several seconds, they were emotionally transported back to a moment between you. But instead of feeling only sadness, they felt clarity. They remembered who they were around you before fear complicated everything. They remembered a version of themselves that was softer, more hopeful, perhaps even more honest. And suddenly they understood that part of what they missed was not only you. They missed who they were when they allowed themselves to care without calculating every possible consequence. That realization changed the question completely. Instead of asking, "Do I still have feelings?" They began asking, "What kind of person do I want to become?" And your name somehow remained connected to the answer. But heaven, in this story, does not whisper that you should wait endlessly. The message is almost the opposite. Keep becoming. Keep living. Keep protecting the peace you worked hard to discover. Do not shrink your world around someone else's unfinished decision. If a connection belongs in your future, it should eventually be capable of meeting you in reality rather than existing forever inside possibility. Your soulmate's awakening is meaningful only if it becomes action, and their action is meaningful only if it respects your freedom to choose. That is why the next stage cannot be about chasing. It must be about revelation. Something is being prepared inside them, not a perfect speech, not a magical solution, but an admission. They know what they want to say first. They have repeated the sentence internally more than once. Yet every time they reach the second sentence, they stop, because the second sentence would expose the part of themselves they have guarded most carefully. It would explain why forever once frightened them. It would reveal what they believed about love before you entered their emotional world. It would explain why they pulled away precisely when their feelings became more serious. And perhaps most importantly, it would answer a question you may have asked yourself more than once: if the connection mattered, why did they make it so difficult? The answer is not that you lacked something. The answer lives in a place inside them that existed before you. There were old expectations there. Old disappointments. Old ideas about vulnerability. Perhaps examples of love that taught them closeness eventually becomes loss, or that showing emotion gives another person too much power. They carried these beliefs quietly, and when your connection began touching deeper places, those beliefs activated. Instead of recognizing fear as fear, they interpreted it as a reason to hesitate. Instead of saying, "This matters to me and that scares me," they became harder to read. You saw the distance. They felt the fear. Neither of you necessarily saw the entire picture. But they see more of it now. And that is why forever has entered their thoughts differently. Forever no longer means losing freedom. It no longer means being trapped by emotion. They are beginning to understand that the right connection can create a different kind of freedom, the freedom to be known without constantly performing, the freedom to communicate without manipulation, the freedom to grow beside someone instead of hiding every imperfect part. Whether the two of you ultimately build that future is still a choice, not a prophecy. But your soulmate has begun understanding what they would need to bring to the table if such a future were ever going to become real. There is one final piece you need before this part of the message closes. Your soulmate has reached a private decision. Not the final decision you might expect. Something comes before that. Before they can decide what forever looks like, they have decided they need to confront something they previously avoided. They know there is a truth that cannot remain hidden behind silence if they ever hope to approach you sincerely. And this truth is connected to a moment from the past that they now see completely differently. At the time, they told themselves it was insignificant. They convinced themselves you probably did not notice. But you noticed. Your heart noticed even if you never spoke about it. And now, looking back, they understand that this moment may have changed the entire direction of your connection. They remember exactly what happened. They remember what you said. They remember what they did afterward. And more importantly, they finally understand what you were actually trying to tell them. That understanding arrived too late to change the past, but perhaps not too late to change what happens next. Because there is a sentence hidden inside that old memory, a sentence they misunderstood then but cannot misunderstand anymore. It explains why you eventually became quieter. It explains why your energy changed. It explains why you stopped trying to convince them of something your heart had already shown repeatedly. Your soulmate has finally decoded that moment. And when they did, they made a choice. They decided that if they ever speak to you again about forever, they must begin by telling you the truth about what happened inside them on that exact day. But there is one detail about that memory you still do not know, because after you walked away believing the moment was over, something happened on their side that you never saw. Someone said something to them. They did not tell you. For a long time, they pretended those words had not affected them. But those words became one of the hidden reasons they made the choices they made afterward, and now they have finally discovered that what they believed back then may not have been the truth at all. And the moment they realized that, your soulmate understood exactly what they needed to do next.